Hey folks, and welcome to today's video. So I thought I'd come along and do another split wrap up. This of course is for what I read during August, so I thought it'd be interesting to do the first kind of 10 or 11 books, as it's been a really productive month so far. A lot of audiobooks as well, combined reading, blended reading, audio and physical, and I thought it'd probably be a bit easier to watch if it was split up a little bit. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first book I finished, I think I had the last couple of pages going into the new month, was Beckoning of the Gate by Benjamin J. Ryan, and this was gifted to me digitally by the author, which was very kind. They reached out to me on Instagram and asked if I'd be interested in reading after seeing that the kind of books I review was of that caliber. Fantasy adult, and it released in 2021 by Odyssey Books, which I believe is an independent publication. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, overview for this. The only life Santha has ever known became her prison. Gossip everywhere turns into accusations of murder and fingers point towards her. Feeling powerless, she wants to escape. It was a 4 out of 5 rating for me. I felt like it was a very strong debut fantasy following an equally very strong female lead in Santha, who grows in determination and capability, sense of character and skill as the story progresses. I wasn't really keen on the type of ending that we got, so personally I'm just not a fan of the more open-ended approach to a story. So if this was like to be a standalone, I feel like it would be, I would definitely want more closure from that. But yeah, I've got a full dedicated review on my Instagram page. I also need to get a video review sorted as well. I did have a favourite quote from that book, and that was, "I have wept for her passing and I survive in her honour." I thought that was an amazing phrase to keep in mind. The next book I read was another book sent to me from the publisher, but I also got a copy of it during Fairy Loot of, I think it was July's Fairy Loot for adult, and I did a full reading vlog on this, so I won't go into depth of my thoughts and feelings, but I will tell you a little bit about what it's about. And that is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune, which is a sci-fi kind of queer romance adult retelling of Pinocchio. Again, this was published by Fairy Loot, but I'd also like to thank Black Crow PR for sending me out a copy. I've got a couple of tabs on here as well. So this set is set in a strange little home built in the branches of a grove of trees. 3 robots and 1 human live together. They're a family safe and hidden until Vic, the human, salvages and repairs an unfamiliar android. And from there, their lives are not quite the same at all, really. And this one I ended up giving a 5 out of 5 stars. As I say, I've got a full vlog on this, talking about it, and you know, in kind of live real time, and yeah, you can see my thoughts there if you're interested. I will select one of these tabs and give you a little quote. Did little little symbols this time around. I've got a heart one, and a thought bubble for ones that I thought for. Death has its usefulness to the living. The moment you were born, you began to die. What a lovely thought. So yeah, there's some really great lines in here. Another one on the opposite side. Forgiveness? I don't understand. Who would you? Oh. His brow wrinkled. I suppose it centres on 3 primary questions. What is the nature of forgiveness? Meaning, what must one do in order to forgive? And who has standing to forgive? Is it just those affected, or does it include someone capable of forgiving, even if they did not suffer as others had? And last, when is forgiveness morally good, right, and praiseworthy? That made sense, though the second question felt tricky. Who had the right to forgive? Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. Definitely check out the vlog if you're interested. After that, I decided to start the Shard Lake series by C.J. Sanson. They had them on my library app Borrow Box as audiobooks, and I decided to listen to the BBC dramatisation of them. This first one, Dissolution, published in 2003, and it is a complete full cast. So it is set in winter 1537. Henry the... I don't know what V111 means. I'm going to look that up now because I'm awful, as I say, at Roman numerals. It's Henry VII, winter 1537. Henry VII has declared himself supreme head of the church and has instructed his Cromwell to dissolve England's religious houses and seize their wealth. But when one of the king's commissions is found murdered in a monastery, the king needs a quick and discreet result, sending his lawyer detective Matthew Shardlake to investigate the situation. So this one I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think in the long run at this point, and it ended up becoming the case, I doubted I would completely read the series in its entirety, because personally I think I am missing that crucial and integral appreciation for the time period and prior knowledge to the characters who were historical figures, you know, for the most part, being utilised. So a lot of it just kind of went over my head, the historical significance. But that being said, this was definitely a brilliant performance. I really will recommend the BBC dramatisation, and it definitely is one that kept me listening, and I was quite engaged. Even if I did drift off, I still was like peaked in, because there was like sound effects and things like that that did keep me coming back in terms of interest. Another audiobook I listened to in August is The Endless War, which is the 4th book in the Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. This one was read by Summer Morton and Michael Paulley, and I listened to it via Audible. As I say, it's the 4th in the Bridge Kingdom series, but it's the 2nd of a duology. So I believe the Bridge Kingdom series is a series, oh my god, how many times am I going to say series? It's a series made up of duologies. So we had the first half being 2 duologies following Lara and Aaron, and then we have the second half, books 3 and 4, is the perspective of Keris and Zara. So, newly crowned King Keris has had to watch powerless as his relationship with Zara is revealed. But when Zara is imprisoned by the Empress, Keris knows there is only one way to save her: to ally with the kingdom he nearly destroyed. Stakes were high in this one. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5, and I think it's the most highly rated that I've given the book so far. Although it's one that I've absolutely loved, they've usually been like 3, 3.5, 4 stars, but this one I was super hooked. I particularly loved, or one of the main things I loved about it, 4 of the mains in the story together. They might not all have been completely like in the same room at the same time, but you had a lot of interaction between all 4 of them, and getting to see like the original couple you followed in the first 2 books, and then their influence or lack thereof in some situations with the second couple, Keris and Zara, in these 2 books, was great to see the different chemistry and the tensions between all of them, and the histories as well. This is definitely my favourite out of the 4 so far. As I've mentioned, I adored seeing more of Zara and Keris together particularly. It was super messy, but in all the best ways. I have a quote, but it's a really dirty, smutty one, and I don't want to read that. Back to the Shardlake series with number 2, Dark Fire. This again read by the BBC dramatised full cast. This is set in summer 1540, a couple of years after book 1, and it's 3 years there we go, since the events in book 1. And Shardlake is living quietly in London until he receives a summons from Cromwell, which sees him embarking on another dangerous secret assignment. I will come back to you. My camera is now angrily flashing at me. Okay, I'm hopeful I've charged up the battery enough. I really should get 2 batteries, to be fair. But anyway, to continue on where we left off, my review for Dark Fire. This one I ended up giving a 3 out of 5 stars, and I wasn't as engaged with this one as I was with the book 1, but it was still a really good story to have on, particularly as background distraction, I would say. Nevertheless, it was still a really strong storyline overall, with some really good building on the conspiracy and this political versus religious unrest that we got the start of from book 1. Swiftly following on, I picked up the 3rd book in that Shardlake series, and this is Sovereign. This one's set in autumn 1541, where King Henry the 7th has set out on a spectacular royal progress to York, aiming to strike fear and awe into his rebellious northern subjects. Shardlake has been set a secret mission once again, but this time by the Archbishop Cranmer. Again, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I've got to say, I noticed book 3 felt a bit too rushed for my taste personally, and I felt like the character of Shard Lake warped from his original air of what felt like genuinity. I'm glad to have tried this series, but this is definitely where I dipped out. So, you know, I had a good run with these, the first 3 books in the series. I think it's quite an extensive one with at least 6 books. I'm pretty sure there's a couple more than that maybe, but yeah, this is where I'm happy to just discontinue. Following that, I actually have a DNF, and that is The Thickety, A Path Begins by J.A. White, read by Susan Durden. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it's about a dark forbidden forest, vicious beasts, deadly plants, an evil spellbook, and a young sister and brother shunned by the village because their mother was a witch. So as I DNF'd it, I didn't give it a rating of any kind really, but I will just say I stopped reading at about 45%, so I did get a good way through. I think that was around chapter 11. Honestly, the main thing I felt from listening to this is that I couldn't handle the narrator's voice, unfortunately. It was very news presenter-y in style, and then the kids' voices was just such a juxtaposition. It was like piercing my brain, so it went from one extreme to the other, and it just didn't feel like a smooth transition. But as well as that, of course, there was the story to consider, and it wasn't one that I was really invested in, unfortunately, which is shocking, as it definitely sounded like my kind of book, you know, forests, witches, adventure story, that kind of vibe, mysterious books and that, but it just took too long to get to the meat of it, and by that point I just didn't care anymore, unfortunately. So that was a DNF for the month. Another book that I feel like potentially I should have DNF'd, this is The Hunger by Alma Katsu, and it was read by Kirsten Potter, and this is adult horror. This is like a kind of a western colonization type of story, and it's based on, I think, something similar that happened, but maybe without the supernatural, I don't actually know. But it says the only way to explain the series of misfortunes that have befallen the Donna party wagon train is that Tasman Donna is a witch. When the ill-fated group struggles to survive the conditions, evil begins to grow around and within them. But it is more, I would say, like a Skinwalker kind of storytelling. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars, unfortunately. I think I definitely would have preferred more so having read like just a non-fiction account of the more historical side of things, because that was kind of interesting to read, and just how people, not necessarily like the discovery, but more so the tensions that rose between the people spending so much time together on this long journey that felt never ending. And obviously in the story it was like supernatural elements was happening, and people were starting to be picked off one by one, and they began to point the finger at each other. And I think in an everyday, you know, more reality existence, that could really be a bubbling hot pot for awful things to happen. So I think I would have, as I say, much preferred a non-fiction account on how people felt, the tensions, the anxieties of this long haul trip to a place in the world that they have never been before, hoping for a new life, I suppose, but also on the flip side, the fact that they are colonizing a place that is already very much inhabited, you know. It just felt a bit off, and I can't really pinpoint why, to be honest. I did find the Skinwalker lore interesting, and I would like to read more about that in the future, whether that is the more myth and legend of the culture around it, or like a straight up fantasy with that inspiration there. Following on from that, I read Cast, The Origins of Our Descendants by Isabel Wilkinson, read by Robin Miles, and this is a non-fiction history, social commentary type of book. This is described as beyond race, class or other factors, there is the caste system that influences people's lives and behaviour, linking it to India and Nazi Germany, exploring the 8 pillars underlining the caste system. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this was a fantastic book. It was powerful, ever so thought-provoking. There were so many times where I was stopping and just to take it in. It had a fantastic blend of personal journalism as well as historical education that aided to create a wider understanding to the caste system in various phases and in various cultures as well. It was a very insightful read, and I definitely state it to be an important read that many people, if not all people, should read. Okay, so second to last book for this video, I finally started the Shadowhunter series. Of course, kicking it off with City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, and what an event this was. We are following Clary, who is irresistibly drawn towards a group of demon hunters. She encounters the dark side of New York, the dangers of forbidden love. I have a full review on this one, but needless to say, I thoroughly enjoyed my time here. Definitely check out that video if you'd like to. It should be, if not the next video after this one up, a couple of videos. I do have a tagged quote here. Love is to destroy, and that to be loved is to be the one destroyed. And finally, for this video, let's quickly talk about Broken Hearts and Zombie Parts by William Husey. I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname, and it is read by Chris Nelson. This follows Jesse, who has a broken heart, and in a few short weeks he'll be needing a major surgery to fix it. He has 2 months to shoot his epic zombie movie and fall in love before his surgery leaves him with a massive scar that he believes to be pretty much something unlovable. So there's a lot that our dear old Jesse has to work through there. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Everything was just absolutely charming. It nearly had me on the verge of joyful tears by the end. Loved Jesse being unapologetically him in terms of his personality, and this kind of warm and natural way he had that inspired others to do the same around him. It was heartwarming with some real and deep conversations on things like homophobia, body neutrality and positivity, and lots more. Humorous too, but overall a beautiful story. So I'm going to wrap that up here, and I shall talk to you guys in the next wrap up, where I will start off with the Sun and the Void. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.